Hi everyone, I'm Terry. Welcome to Cook, Create, Read, or welcome back if you've watched any of my previous videos. And if you have, thank you so much. It's really fun to watch the viewing numbers go up very slowly, but if you have watched them, thank you so much. So today I thought I would share some of my favourite books, just to give you a kind of a flavour of the kind of books that I like to read and maybe help you decide whether you want to carry on watching my channel, and if you do, please subscribe. So I'm just going to share 5 books with you today. I've obviously got many more favourite books than this, but I just thought I would keep it brief and just stick to 5 for today. So I'm going to start with one that I don't actually have physically, so I'll be putting a picture of it here, hopefully. And that is I Let You Go by Claire Mackintosh. So I couldn't talk about my favourite books without mentioning a thriller, which is my favourite genre to read. It's the one I always turn to if I'm stuck and don't know what to read, or if I'm in a kind of reading slump at all. A thriller is usually guaranteed to get me out of it. And Claire Mackintosh has written lots of books, but I Let You Go is the first one that she wrote, and I read this ages ago when it was first released, which I'm not sure when that was actually, but I'm sure it's at least 10 years ago. So I Let You Go stands out in my memory as one of the very first books I read that had a major plot twist in the middle of it. I don't really want to talk too much about the plot because I don't want to spoil anything, but I remember when I got to that plot twist I had to go back and reread what I just read because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'd never read anything like it before. And then as soon as I'd finished, I gave the book to my mum, told her to read it, and I was like waiting with bated breath for her to get to that point so that I could talk to her about it, because she used to read a lot of mystery thriller crime books as well, so. And she loved it as well. She also hadn't read anything like it before. So this was really something new to us that we just hadn't experienced before. I suspect if I read this book again now, I wouldn't be as impressed. So I'm definitely not going to reread it. I just don't think it would have the same impact because since then I've read lots of books with lots of twists. But that being said, Claire Mackintosh remains one of my favourite authors, and I will read pretty much anything that she puts out. So I would highly recommend if you love thrillers, or even if you don't, if you've never read a thriller book before, this would be a really good place to start. So the second book I want to talk about today is The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. You can see I was in an annotating phase during this reading session. It's not something I do very often, but sometimes if a book really speaks to me, then I will just get out the old little page tabs, and I think I've underlined and made comments and stuff in here. So that's a good sign that it made a really good impression on me. So on Goodreads, this book is listed as a magical realism fantasy, I think, which aren't really my favourite genres. So looking at it, this isn't a book that I would generally enjoy, but I absolutely loved it. So this is set in a small independently owned bookstore in Minneapolis, it's actually based on Louise Erdrich's own bookstore, and she actually makes a kind of cameo appearance within the book, which is fun. There's a motley crew of characters who work in this bookshop, along with a ghost who was one of their customers who has just recently died, and she causes all sorts of chaos within the bookstore. And then one of the other main characters is called Tuki, and she has just been released from prison. And they're just such a lovable bunch of characters. And you know, the things that they get up to in the bookstore, it's just a really engaging story. And the story's set over the period of 1 year between 2019 and 2020. So it's just as the COVID-19 pandemic is, working its way through us all. What a time that was. It's a very kind of reflective account of the time. I love books with quirky characters, and this book is full of them. So if you like quirky characters, small town stories, books about books, then highly recommend this one. The next book is one for you if you love a family saga, and that is The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. So this is a super hyped up book, and I think it lives up to that hype. A lot of books don't live up to the hype for me, but this one certainly did. In this book we follow identical twin sisters who are really close in their childhood, but as they grow into adulthood they become separated and they end up living completely different lives. One of them stays in her hometown with her black daughter. The other sister goes off to live in California, living the high life and passing as a white woman. And then the story follows these two narratives as they come back together and weave together. I did have a bit of a niggle with this story. There's a massive coincidence that happens, and coincidences is one of my pet peeves, so that just didn't jibe with me very well. But other than that, this book is perfection. It's a really thoughtful, emotional and fascinating look at loss, grieving, families, trauma and identity. It's all tied up in beautiful writing by this author. I've also read The Mothers by her, which I really enjoyed as well, so this is another excellent author that I'll definitely be reading more of her books if she's got any. I'm not sure if she's got any out at the moment, any newer books, but I will definitely read anything else that she brings out. So the fourth book that I'm going to share today is Human Acts by Han Kang. I read The Vegetarian by this author first. Oh, and this is translated by Deborah Smith from the Korean. I read The Vegetarian by this author, which I really enjoyed, but I'm not entirely sure I completely understood it. But this one is really different to The Vegetarian, and it starts off during a student uprising, which turns into like a really violent, it just ends really violently with the deaths of this one boy in particular. And then the story moves fluidly as we follow all the people affected by this boy's death. It's a really heartbreaking and devastating story about oppression, brutality, but it's written so beautifully and poetically, and it is a stunning piece of work, and I need to read more of Han Kang's books. And then the final book I'm going to talk about today is Lonesome Dove by Larry McMurtry. So this is a book I never would have picked up if it wasn't for BookTube. It's super chunky. It is, how many pages? Over like nearly 840 pages long. It's written by a man. I don't generally tend to read, well, I do read books by men, but mostly I read books by women. It's historical fiction, which isn't one of my favourites. It's probably my least read, apart from young adult books. Historical fiction is probably my least read genre. It's about cowboys. Couldn't give a monkeys about cowboys. And it's a Pulitzer Prize winner, and I don't have a very good relationship with Pulitzer Prize winners usually. So for all those reasons, this is generally a book I would avoid like the plague. But around 10 years ago, I would say, I used to watch a booktuber whose name I cannot remember. I think she was American. She lived in Japan, but she's not on BookTube anymore, and I really can't remember her name. But we had very similar reading tastes, and she was banging on about this book so much I decided to give it a go. So I picked it up with really low expectations, and like literally 7 days later I'd finished. And this book is huge, and like it's not like the writing is really small, well not really small, but it's like pretty small, packed pages, narrow margins, so you know there's a lot of words in here. So it's the 1880s. We're following a posse of cowboys. Had to look up what the collective noun for a bunch of cowboys is, and it is a posse, which is cool. So this posse of cowboys are driving their herd of cattle from the Rio Grande in like the south of Texas to the north in Montana. And like I say, this sounds like a really boring idea for a book, but the way this is written, the characters just come to life on the pages. You so quickly get enthralled in this story. It made me laugh, it made me cry, I got saddle sores. I really fell in love with these characters, and I was bereft when the story ended. Felt like I'd lost a family member. Now I know that he has actually written a follow-up. I think there's like 2 or 3 more books in this series, but I've heard they're not as good as this one, and I'm loath to pick them up because I really don't want it to tarnish the memory that I have of reading this book and these characters. I would say if you're someone who's never had any interest whatsoever in cowboys, but maybe you've recently enjoyed watching Yellowstone, I think it's on Netflix. I haven't watched it myself, but I know it's about cowboys. Or even if you haven't, I would really recommend that you give this book a go. Also, look at this dude posing here in his snazzy little jumper with his cup of coffee, his cool little bookshelves behind him. What a dude. So there you go. 5 books that I enjoyed more than coffee, which is saying something. I would love to hear if you've read any of these books. If you have, if you've got any similar recommendations for me, please leave me a comment below. If you like this video, please like and consider subscribing. I'd be so happy if you did. And thanks for watching. Bye bye.